Hey, Steve.
Hello.
Hi, Steve.
Hello. How's everybody doing?
Okay. Just a little antsy about Best in Show, as always.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's getting down to crunch time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next 2 to 3 weeks are going to be interesting to see how things play out with this COVID and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how they can predict it, but they're saying it might peak out in the next couple of weeks. But
that's what they've seen in other places that had the Omicron before we did. That's kind of what they're predicting. We shall see, I guess.
yeah.
Well, I know it's hitting MTD hard. We're getting 3 to 5 employees every day that are testing positive.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You run out of employees after a while.
Well, yeah, of course, it's kind of a rotating thing. You know, some get off of quarantine, others go back in. So, but it is making it even more difficult than it has been to still provide the service.
Yeah. You said your wife was feeling bad with the flu. I guess that's
yeah, she's got a touch of it. It's not extreme, but it's always a little bit of a nervousness when she gets sick with being a cancer survivor.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, she's doing better. I think she's going to go back to school tomorrow. So she had a day of it. So far, knock on wood, I've been able to avoid it. But we'll see how that goes. Hello.
Hey, there's our speaker.
Yeah, here we come.
Hey, how y'all doing?
All right, pretty good. How are you?
Doing all right.
Hello to Ellen also.
Yeah, hello, Ellen.
Hello.
Nice to see you here tonight, Tom. Tom Fry.
Couple Toms, huh?
Now, Ellen, are you here in town or are you off somewhere warm?
In Florida.
Florida, I thought so.
Lucky.
Feel lucky.
When will you come back?
I'm gonna come back for 2 weeks in February, and then we'll come back down here until April, end of April.
Good.
So,
Do you have a house down there or do you just?
we have a condo.
Yeah.
So we usually just come just this time of year usually.
After Saturday, I threatened to my wife that we would move down south somewhere after the ice storm. I was like, no.
Saturday was chaotic. It didn't look that bad, but oh my goodness.
I don't miss it.
My daughter,
I'm sure.
my daughter was actually doing a running event over at Kickapoo. She asked me in the morning, she goes, "You think I'll be all right?" And I'm like, well, it's not supposed to really start and get fired up till after 1 o'clock. Yeah, it moved in early, but she was able to make it home. She did good. Didn't do as well on the run itself. That was her first do not finish. She fell and scraped up her knees and couldn't finish the run. But they say everybody's encouraging her in the running club. They said that happens.
Hello.
Hello.
I don't see how you can run in this weather. It's so cold. But there's
actually, to a point, the runners actually prefer it a little colder because it's a little better on their body. But
it's cold.
other than falling down on frozen ground. And that was a trail race too. You know how Kickapoo is. There's some of those trails get pretty steep, so it made it a challenge. She's actually training for the half marathon this spring. So
hopefully they'll have it.
So far, they're going ahead with it. So who knows how things. It seems to be in ever shifting sands on what's going to be allowed and what's not allowed. I know it's real bad up in the Chicago area. There's things being shut down and canceled and postponed like crazy up there.
Do they have snow up there?
They've had snow and ice, but it's more the virus is causing things right now to be shut down. And again, it's like everywhere else. Some events are continuing on, and others are saying, "Yeah, now let's go ahead and cancel it." Depends on the organization, I guess. Nobody really knows what's the right thing to do.
I figure if they can hold these huge sporting events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I hear you.
Hello, Barb.
Hello. For anybody that is an old member.
Oh, we lost your bit.
Lost your audio for some reason.
Do you have it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, for anyone who's an old member, which I think the only person that's still in the group that would know her would be Mary, and Mary doesn't look like she's here. Elaine Ebling, who was a longtime member many years ago, passed away last week, I believe.
Oh.
But just point of reference so that people know.
Okay.
Yeah, Elaine Ebling, I cut out her obituary, but
oh, you are there, Mary. I didn't see you.
I just got on, Barb. So.
Well, you were the one that I was kind of telling because you were the only one that I thought would know of the current members.
It might be that Jean Paley does, but she doesn't come very often, so.
We'll give a few more minutes for people to hop on, and then we'll go ahead and get started with a few short announcements, and then we'll get started with our speaker tonight.
Steve, should we mute ourselves again?
Yeah, once Tom Nelshoppen starts his presentation, it works best if everybody mutes themselves.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tom's on.
Yeah,
Yeah, early indications are we may get our first accumulating snow Friday night and Saturday. So we'll see how that
Time
goes.
for the weekend.
Another lovely weekend.
Yep. Gonna be a warm week though.
Yeah, it's finally going to warm up. It's been pretty cold, but the roller coaster continues up and down.
Should we take some entry forms on Saturday for people who want to enter? I mean, they can get them online, but.
Yeah, we could have some available there, sure.
I would just print some out.
Yeah.
Okay. And brochures about the club or anything?
Yeah.
I had a brochure. I've updated our brochure for our club, but it's not complete or printed out or anything. But
We have some from last year though, that we were handing out to new members.
Yeah, I have some in the basement from last year, like 10 or 15 that would give us our contact information as long as we said this is last year's, not this year's. So.
Ellen, I like your photograph in your background. Nice reflection of the mansion there.
Oh yeah, that was this last fall.
Okay.
Did you get an artist to paint those wonderful clouds for you, Al?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's not Photoshopped. It was really there.
We've been getting some really nice sunrises and sunsets past few days here in town. My goodness. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Just a couple quick announcements. Of course, our event tonight, and then we have on Saturday at the Champaign Library, we'll be having our print display and a couple of demonstrations on how people can mount their photos. And I'll bring my laptop, and if somebody has a photo that they want some for us to show them how it might be edited in a program like Lightroom, and we can kind of give a little quick Lightroom demonstration on what they can do, and be able to see some of the photos around. And then in two weeks, Tom will be back and giving the second part of his presentation. And we do have, Kim, we have a webinar too, don't we? We have a webinar on January 19th at 6 p.m. It's from all angles, abstract geometric architecture.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and I will send that out. And as it gets closer, I'll send a link out. But yes.
Okay. Sounds good. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker. An Urbana native, Thomas Nelshoppen works for technology services at the University of Illinois. He's primarily a sports photographer, but also dabbles in wildlife, portraits, and landscape photography. His images can be found on the Illini baseball website, their annual media guides, and even on baseball cards. Thomas is also a Parkland College community education instructor and helps guide those wanting to learn products such as Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop. He does have an upcoming class for beginners on Photoshop that begins on May 3rd at Parkland. Thomas's favorite activity is going on photography adventures with his grown son, Dylan. And you can see some of Tom's work in his gallery at https://photos.illinoisbaseballreport.com. Tonight, he's going to over the topics in Lightroom of an overview of non-destructive editing, why it's important, some photo editing terms to be familiar with, a look at the Lightroom interface, his editing workflow process, and how to make editing more efficient. In 2 weeks, in the second part of his presentation, he will be covering the topics of how Lightroom catalogs work, how to import your photos, cull and rate your photos, the exporting process, and how to establish an efficient workflow. We are all looking forward to watching what he has to say this week and next week. So without further ado, we'll let Thomas take it away. You should be able to share your screen.
All right, I'm going to do that right now. Okay. Thank you, Steve. I sure appreciate it. And I do appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of you. Is my audio okay? Fantastic. And yes, I have been an Urbana native, Urbana resident for, gosh, going on, what, 35 years now. And I work for tech services at the University of Illinois. I am an IT guy, but really, you know, I'm a good guy. You know, don't hold that against me. I did seriously start, you know, shooting probably, you know, I would say maybe 20 years ago. And I began shooting sports photography. I picked probably the most complicated and expensive genre of photography to shoot, just because I love baseball. And I have not regretted it at all. But it is something that I really have enjoyed. And when Steve and I talked about, you know, me going, you know, doing this and talking to you about Lightroom and how to go about you know, guiding through this process, you know, trying to cram Lightroom into one presentation. It would be just too, you know, there's so much to Lightroom, it would be too much. So we decided to spread it out into 2 presentations, and that made a lot of sense. The question is, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. And Lightroom is used, one of its biggest, I would say, advantages is its organizational, you know, enhancement to how to organize galleries, how to make it easier for you to peruse your gallery and how to present your gallery to others. But it's also used for, obviously, photo editing. And it's hard to present one without the other. So I decided to go ahead and, for this first presentation, just dive right into the editing process and how I do it, my workflow. And then for the second one, we'll go into the importing, the exporting, how I organize it, where your photos are, how I organize the process and make it easier to find your photographs, how to make it so that when you export them, others can see your photographs, because that's really a big part of that. But before I do that, you know, one big component of Lightroom is the fact that it's a non-destructive it's a non-destructive image editor, and most of the higher end photo editors out there are non-destructive, but there are some that are destructive. What does that mean exactly? Does that mean that an editor destroys your photograph? Not really, but it does sort of mean that it does let you make changes to your files that are photographs. And the big difference here is that with Lightroom and other higher end photo editors, you can make you can edit a photograph without actually changing the original file. Just a quick just a graphic I came up with destructive editing, and I have gone through this process, and this has been what 10, 11 years ago. I used a destructive editor and then realized it was a destructive editor, and I did a workaround, so I was not actually, I kept my original photographs. But basically, you can make an edit, and then you can make a second edit, and at each time you do that, the quality of your photograph will diminish. It will resize. It will become the quality of your photograph will diminish. Now, as opposed to non-destructive editing, you will have your original image up here. What happens is that this basically a database entry right here. It keeps a list of all the changes that you make, and you can make an edit, and you can make another edit, and then you can export that image into a workable file that you can use on the web, or you can post to social media, or you can print, and you can make another edit on a totally different virtual copy on another version, and you can export that image. And all that time, this file here stays intact. It stays the same as when you got it off your SD card or when you transferred it from your camera to your computer. And that, to me, when I transitioned from, I think what I was using was what was Google's editor they had, which was a fine editor, but it just changed the actual file. And once I did that, I was just much happier camper. So that's just one thing I want to get off, want to change so that you guys all become aware. And before I actually dive into Lightroom, just a few terms to be aware of. Just so that, because Lightroom uses some photo terms that we all should be aware of. The biggest set of terms are tonal definitions, black shadows, midtones, highlights, and whites, and some people refer to the shadows and the highlights. And of course, we have the blacks and the whites on the opposite side, and then midtones, of course, right in the middle. And I've tried to make the colors as they typically are. And they're basically the difference between the lightest and the darkest areas on each photograph. And I have a separate, I kind of took this off the web, but basically it's the same. It's a spectrum, if you will. But if you remember these tones, it will be helpful. Another is white balance. I'm sure most of you are all familiar with that. This photo here I took at an event I was at obviously a couple years ago when COVID was not a thing. I took this down at a cooler temp, and then this is an example at a warmer temp. I think what happened is I probably did it somewhere in between. Neither is wrong, neither is right. They're just different ways of how you interpret that photograph. Contrast is a visual ratio of different tones in an image. Lower contrast is the blacks are blacker, the whites are whiter. This is more of a you get more of a ethereal feel to it, as opposed to this, where obviously it pops out at you more. Clarity is very similar to contrast, but only affects the midtones and the local region. So you can see this is decreased clarity, although it's not quite as pronounced as contrast. However, if I increase the clarity on that same photograph, you can definitely see it, especially if you look in the reflection of the white duck here. Saturation, you all know what saturation is, and everyone seems to want to increase the saturation of the photograph, and sometimes it's the trick is to know when not to increase saturation. I think what I did with this photograph is I did something in between with this photograph. Vibrance is something that's not quite as well known, and actually a little trivia is that there is no such word as vibrance outside of the world of Adobe. They just sort of made that word up. There's vibrant, but not vibrance. Vibrance is similar to saturation, but it only affects the muted tones. And so you'll see this is decreased vibrance, and this is more increased. And vibrance it works well with portraits where you can increase the vibrance, but it does not. It doesn't increase the skin tones. So that you don't get the dark, splotchy skin, which can be really helpful. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see this with a small photo, but you'll see it when I do a demonstration of Lightroom. This is a picture I took of a picture in the field in a relatively dark area. And digital noise is obviously visual distortion that where you get noise, and this can be corrected in Lightroom. And again, you may not be able to see it, but I'll demonstrate this in Lightroom. So this basically just is going to give us a reference for when we get into Lightroom. And let's go on into Lightroom. All right, so you should be able to see Lightroom now. Just a quick overview of the interface that you see. You have, I'm going to scroll to the top here. On the left, we have basically our navigation panel, and we will have our catalogs, our folders, and as we hover over each catalog, this is I have my photographs that are on my C drive, and also the ones that are on my my Z drive, which is my network attached storage. My local computer only has 256 gigabytes, so I had to offload it to my network attached storage, which is upstairs. So this is basically a list of all my photos that are organized by folders. This is the actual view of the photos in a grid view. Now I can open up a folder of a view of a photo if I want in the loop view, which I did either by double clicking on it, or I can just click on here, or again, I can just by double clicking. And over on the left, in the library module, we see the histogram, a quick development feature, which quite honestly I don't use very often. Keyboarding, which I'd use extensively for any serious photographs that I use. Metadata, which is done automatically out of the camera, and also any any data that I put in there, either by culling, either by rating or by the any if I want to put in like my copyright, that kind of thing, that gets put in as well. You can see my name is in here as well. That gets put in automatically when I import my photographs. This is all within the library module. You can see that there are 1, 2, 3. There's six modules here. I spend 99% of my time in the library or develop module. The others I find, not as useful. I've tried the book module, the print module, and occasionally I might try. I try the map module as well, but I spend most of my time in the library and develop module. And within the develop module, you'll see a little bit of difference within on the left side, presets, which is something I'll get into a little bit later, is a way for you to be a little bit more efficient if you want to, if you do a simple task or even a complicated task over and over again, you can apply a preset so you don't have to do that same task over again. The history, you can see what I've done so far on this photograph, which I don't think I even used this photograph, so it probably was not used, but and then these are collections that I have. And the develop module, which is what I'll go over in more detail when we get into actual editing. But essentially, you'll see the histogram up here. If you're not familiar with the histogram, get to know the histogram. It'll be your friend. And if you see, if I hover over it, you'll see the settings that your camera used to take this photograph. And right now, you can see I shot at ISO 200 millimeter f3.5 and 1/3200th of a second. So these are the actual settings you use to edit the actual photograph. So that's the basic, and I'm going to go over these for this presentation. So let me just scroll down just a little bit. I'm going to grab an image here. All right. Speaking of allergen, right, Alan? So,
right.
Couple things about Lightroom. You'll see that. Let me make sure I'm on the yeah. You'll see these sliders here, and by the way, all these photographs that we're using for this presentation are at their as shot status. This is right out of the camera here. These nubs here, you can change these settings here, and you'll see that there's exposure, contrast, light, highlight, shadows. These all sound familiar, right? It's why I talk about them. You can change these settings in a variety of ways. You can click anywhere along this line here, and it'll change. You can click on the nub and use the scroll wheel, and you can move it. You can just click on the number and just type a number. In this case, I put 2, and that will work. If you can, and I know you can hover your mouse over the number and then left click and move it. You can scrub basically left and right. I don't ever do that. I'm going to tell you that right now. My favorite way of doing it is clicking on the nub, and sometimes that will happen. And of course, I will usually just use the scroll wheel. Now, if you get to the point where you've got a couple settings and I'm just doing this randomly, there's no rhyme or reason yet, although it does look pretty nice. And you're like, I really don't like the way this looks. I want to just start over. You can just click on the section's name, which in this case is tone. Just double click on it and it just zeroes it out. So you're back to square one here. You can click the Alt or press the Alt button, and you can see it says reset when I do that. And then that will, I can do this again. And then it goes back to where it's zeroed out. If you just wanted to zero one out, like if you got your highlights down to -60, you can double click on highlights and that goes back to 0. And that's a small thing, I realize, but sometimes you really just want just that one value to go back to 0. So it is somewhat helpful. And there is an auto button that can do a best guess. Sometimes it's not a best guess, and I would go with that statement in this case, just because I feel it's a bit underexposed. And sometimes it could be perfect, so it is that. And so I'm just going to double click and get back to where we were before. If you do have, like, say you've done some settings and you've got the way you want it, and then you want to see what was it like before. I don't want to I just want to see, what was it, like, before. Well, you could do that. So and each one of these sections has a tab right here that allows you to temporarily turn off what each of these sections does. So you can just say, well, I'd like to see what would be like if we, and then you can turn it right back on again. So that gives you an idea what that can do. So basically, the way I like to describe the adjustment panel is, and that's what this is, the adjustment panel, is that everything under these 4 icons here are global adjustments, and that's almost true. I mean, it's maybe an overstatement. And by global adjustments, I mean that everything, if I adjust this, everything in this image here is being adjusted. Every pixel in this image is being adjusted. If I change the highlights, every pixel is being adjusted. If I scroll down to sharpening and I increase the sharpening, every pixel is being sharpened. Sometimes you don't want that. And I will reference one of the 4 up here. You can selectively, you can do a selective adjustment where only that's, for example, a linear adjustment where anything you see right now is in red will get adjusted, and I'll go over this in a little bit. For now, I'm just going to do a Control Z and take that out. So that is a bit of a, you know, that's kind of how I look at the adjustment panel. So I'm going to go over to a few photos that I have. This is a JPEG, and I wanted to start with the JPEG. I almost always shoot RAW, but I have shot JPEG in the past, and I realized not everyone shoots RAW. So I wanted to display a JPEG because Lightroom deals with JPEG differently than it does RAW. So that's what I do first, and this is my personal workflow, and everyone's different as far as how they deal with their workflow. But I had to deal with my, not just my cropping, but my angle. Sometimes and you'll see why in a minute with a different photograph. You'll see that when I clicked, I clicked the crop button here, and it used to say crop over. Now it's a, you know, it's a pretty cryptic icon here, and you can see that I'm grabbing the side. Any side will do, and it just gives me a way for me to squeeze in or out with the camera's aspect ratio. Now I can choose a different aspect ratio if I wish, and it gives me some presets here, or you can enter your own aspect ratio, or if you don't want to be constrained by, you know, a particular aspect ratio, you can click this lock button here, and I can just go like that, you know, and I know some photographers who just, you know, they do that. Now, I personally, I like having set, you know, I like staying with the my particular aspect ratio, or sometimes I will go by like 16:10 if I'm doing something a little bit wider, which actually might work. And it seems pretty level to me right now, but we'll find out when this is obviously pretty underexposed, so we're going to deal with that in a minute. So if you, a different way for you to make sure this is level is to click the angle button. For me, the auto worked pretty well, but that's because I had this orange line behind my baseball players a lot, and it worked with that pretty well. You can, if you have something straight in your photograph, you can just be really careful. So I think I was all right, and it will straighten it out for you if you have something straight that you are with. And if you have a particular number, you can type it in there. But although honestly, I don't think I've ever used that particular tool. So I'm going to go with 16:10 and go ahead and apply that. So one thing to consider is your profile. And this is one thing that JPEG is a bit lacking, is that you just have two to go with. You have color and monochrome. And with RAW, you'll see in a few minutes that you have a lot more to do. So I'm going to go color. This is a very color intensive photograph, so I'm going to go with that. With white balance, you have a few options. You can, well, actually, again with JPEG, you have, you can try auto and see if that works pretty well. I don't like the way the auto deals with this photograph at all. I like the way it was a bit warmer on this end. You can try the eyedropper. Find an area where you find some neutral, like non-color grays, or try this. Let's see, that's a little too green. I might stick with that and make it kind of like the way it was before. So we'll just stick with that. My personal philosophy with Lightroom, the tonal adjustments to Lightroom, is that if I light the photograph out of the camera, the tonal adjustments out of the camera, I will not use auto, and I'll just adjust as each one individually. If it's a bit, iffy, like this one is a little bit, I might just try auto and see what happens, and see what, that actually was a big difference. And I'm gonna still do a few more adjustments. And I really like the I guess the subject of the photograph. It's just a great look on his face, and I want to try to do what I can to save it. So I'm gonna add a bit of texture and a bit of clarity, and the tone curve is something that I came to a bit late. It's a different way to adjust the tones in your photograph, and you can add some light. And basically, if you remember the tonal definitions, it goes in that order. So blacks, shadows, midtones, highlights, and whites. So I'm going to increase the highlights and then take down the darks on this side. And you can see how much there are in this little histogram right here, because there's a lot of like shadows here. I'm going to take down the darks here a little bit, not too much. I don't want to be a little too dark there. So you can see it makes it pop a little bit more that way. I'm going to skip over HSL color for now and color grading for this photograph. Detail is a big one I use a lot. And since this is a JPEG, there's no sharpening being done. I'm going to click on my photograph once. It makes it zoom in once. You can adjust how much it zooms in over here, and that can make it zoom in a lot. And this is helpful to find out how much grain is in your photograph. And there isn't, there's a little bit, but I'm going to increase the sharpening up this much. And then what's helpful for me is to hold the Alt button while I'm adjusting the mask. And this will tell you exactly what's being sharpened and what's not. And I don't want everything being sharpened. I just want certain critical areas. So I don't, like for example, I don't want the grass or the wall behind him being sharpened. I just want his face, the O on his helmet being sharpened. So, and I'm trying to stop. This will help me. I might use the noise reduction just a little bit, and then the color, sorry. Okay. So these are all, except for the masking here, these are all global adjustments. Everything I've done has affected every pixel in this image. I'm thinking of doing a selective adjustment here, and this is done with this masking, and do it using using a brush. And this, by the way, is like brand new in Lightroom, the way this is being done. And so I had to get used to how this is all being done. You can see that there's a double circle in there, and I'm adjusting the size using my scroll on my mouse, and it's that's so much easier than in Photoshop. You have to use the bracket keys, and they don't let you use the scroll wheel. I wish they did. I'm gonna see if I can do a little bit of, and now I know that looks way horrible, but it's not really there. It's just showing what, that just shows what is being affected. And if I can increase the or decrease the shadows just a little bit. And if you're ever working with a brush, you can hit the space key, and then you can zoom in so you can see exactly what you're working with. Okay. So that's that. By general rule, I always have remove chromatic aberration on and enable profile corrections. And if you watch as I do that, you probably didn't, okay. Removing chromatic aberration, you probably won't be able to see it. Let me just see if you can. I'm going to zoom in a lot. Okay. You can't, I have another example. Sometimes along edges, you'll see blue or purple or green along edges, but you really need to look for it. But if you're printing something, it's just really helpful to have this chat. And actually, now that I think about it, this is a JPEG, and this will not, I don't have this lens profile in there, so it probably will not affect it.
Tom, you were checking the wrong box.
What's that?
You were checking the enable profile corrections, not the chromatic aberration box.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. Oh, I do see a difference now. Thank you, Alan. You're totally correct. So if you do look, and you really need to look, you can almost see it. I have examples where it's really obvious, like mostly landscape or like architecture photograph. So this might be the extent of what I work with in this photograph. And again, this is a JPEG. Your options are slightly limited with a JPEG, and that it's sort of the reason why I moved to move the shooting to RAW. I will say that I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next photograph. I really like this photograph, but I feel it's all over the place, and I feel that this is taken with a very wide angle lens. So I'm going to take my crop tool and really crop it down, but still have a wide aspect ratio, probably something like 16:9. And I want to get like Alan's picture. I want to get both reflections here. And the problem is I want something. Maybe I won't do that. Maybe I'll get maybe I'll just like a 5:7 instead. Yeah. And then I want to figure, usually I'll see how well the auto does. And if I feel it's not quite right, I can go up here when it turns. And turns into like a curved arrow, I can move it. So I'll just see how that works. Every time I okay, yeah. Something that came out, and this is probably going to be somewhat a bit, I don't know if it's controversial, but different. Under the masking tool, it's select sky. If you give it a couple of seconds, you can see now that the sky is red. And as of a couple of weeks ago, they do not have a selection tool for the reflection underneath here, which, you know, I'm sure people are clamoring for right now. But you can now edit the sky. You can make it darker. You can give it slightly, a little more contrast, a little more. I honestly like the sky the way it is, but you can certainly. Sometimes it's helpful to have a little bit of dehaze if your sky's a bit, but was actually a perfect day, so it's not a lot I do to it. And so I'm just going to leave that the way it is, and we'll go to down here. Oh, this is actually a JPEG too. I'd forgotten about that. And that's a bit the blacks are a bit black for me. I'm going to lift that up a bit. And that may be Lightroom picking that up. So I'm going to, and also, I think, lift the highlights, and I'm going to give lift the shadows just a tad bit. And that's pretty much how I do that. Let's zoom in just. I don't want to zoom in that much. And I tend to not add too much clarity to landscape photographs. And sharpening is not as critical, and since I do not have a lens profile for the lens I had, this will not do, this particular one will not do anything. If I wanted to put a vignette around this photograph, I could do that. I probably want to do a darker one. That's an option as well. Going on to my love. This is a photograph I was referencing earlier. You can see why I do cropping first. For some reason, I just clicking auto. It sees this orange line. It says right away you need to hold your camera straighter for whatever reason. This is a pretty decently focused picture, but for whatever reason the background's a bit faded. I will say that when you're in the crop tool, you can press the O button, and if you want to overlay a different overlay other than the one that they have by default, you can press the O key, and it'll cycle through. and whatever one you prefer, you get the golden spiral there. I prefer the roll thirds. I'm not wedded to the roll thirds, but I tend to use that more often than anything. And I will make sure that it is pretty even. And this seems to work pretty well for me, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. This is taken in raw, and when you shoot in raw, you get a variety of color profiles, and these are a few of them. And you also can get some 15 of them that you can choose to, also ones you can import as well. I tend to stick with Adobe Color or Adobe Vivid or Adobe Standard unless I'm shooting in landscape. A landscape photograph, I can use landscape, which makes it a lot more vivid. Portrait is good for, obviously, for portrait. Vivid really is a bit splashy for this particular photograph, so I'm going to use Adobe Color. You can adjust how much each photograph is, but I'm going to go ahead and just keep it the way it is. And if you shoot in a particular mode on your camera, you can just keep it as shot. And I'm thinking I probably did. I'm going to go ahead and just see now. If I click on auto, I don't like the results at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and undo that, Control Z. And I'm going to go ahead and this is a tricky photo to do. And this gives me a good opportunity to show another new feature is select subject. This is, again, totally new within the last couple months. I can click on subject and hopefully it does a good job. We'll find out in a couple seconds here. And it did. And that picks out. So now when I'm editing is just the ball player. And I can uncheck show overlays, but I'm still just editing the ball player. And that's perfect. That's just what I want to do. And I'm going to take down the highlights, bring up the shadows, the whites, take the blacks down a bit. A bit of clarity maybe. And maybe some sharpness. And what I can do as well is create a new mask, subject, but this time invert it so it's everything but the mask. And I might do a bit of dehaze because it's a little, that makes it a little bit less, I guess, faded, the back of it. I certainly don't want it sharpened, but it just looks a little faded to me. And that's all I need right there. That's all, And the last thing I want, if you go in, click done, I might do a brush. Just the brush. And bring out his shadows just a tad. just so I can see his eyes, because that's any questions so far? So some of the decisions I have to make are, what cropping I have, and this is a big decision here. If I get too close, also I need to here. It's a good picture of the player, but the opposing player, I could crop him out or take him out, but it just doesn't look good otherwise. Or I can keep the whole going to reset that. So something like that, while hopefully just resetting the level here. That actually is a good look. And this is one of those photographs where I actually like the way the tone looks. And I wouldn't, go straight to auto. I may adjust it just a little bit. Just increase the contrast a little bit. And increase the sharpening just a tad, and increase the masking. And you'll see if I enable profile corrections, you can tell the lens profile is included, and it did sort of stretch out. Yeah, I do tend to lean toward the left. I don't know why. This was taken in the fall. And actually, I'm gonna do something like that. And these are one of the photographs I actually do want to use a wide crop. Let's go with that. And you can see there's a slight difference with the Adobe standard profile. Keep it at. I normally shoot when I'm shooting at the ballpark, I will shoot in daylight mode. So I want to preserve that. Too dark, too light. I actually really like that the way it is. Too dark. And I'll add some masking for the sharpening. Yeah, I go back and forth on this photograph. I really do if it needs a noise reduction. This is when I zoom in. Yeah, it probably does. Probably not that much. How are we doing at time, Steve?
It's only 7:30. I mean, you can go to 8:30 if you want. Depends on how you're doing on your time.
I'm doing fine. I took this picture from a bridge on the Cumberland River in Nashville. I like the way it turned out, except for it's obviously very underexposed. And this will give you an idea of a couple things. But first, let's go ahead. And I don't know if I want to crop it too much, other than to make sure that it's where it should be. It's one of those awkward photographs where you can't line up with the streets because the streets are going off into one direction and then the other, but not toward you. We'll do that. So in this case, I'm going to go with landscape just because it is, a landscape photograph. I'm going to increase the exposure, contrast a little bit, take down the highlights. And that's, generally speaking, highlights, I take highlights down, take shadows up, take whites up, blacks down. There's rarely a time that I don't do that. Let's use the sky tool here a little bit. It did a pretty good job. If you ever get something where it happens to grab something it should not, you can always use a brush tool to scrub away anything that it didn't get or did get and you don't want it to get, that kind of thing. But it did a pretty good job, I think. So and I know that some people are this is obviously a pretty decent sky and I don't have a problem with it, but I personally don't like Instagram photographs of wild looking skies that are obviously not not real, but it's art, whatever. I'm going to do a global adjustment of the exposure just a tad. Actually, let's zoom in a ton here. I'm surprised I'm not seeing. Okay, I'm seeing a little bit of chromatic aberration. And you can see I used this somewhat of a wide angle. It was at, okay, it was 17 millimeter. When I click on enable profile corrections, it sort of flatten this out. And that may be your call. But if you're, if you're displaying this, or even if you're, especially if you're printing this out, that may be something you'll want to do. So, and for if you need to do this manually, you can do this under the distortion profile. You can. It's a bit tricky, but it does work. I'm just going to double click on the nub here, and it does work. Here's a photograph from the other side of the bridge, and it really does not look like great shakes. I'll admit that right now. It's the Cumberland River, but I did like the reflection of the bridge, and I thought I'd try it. And I'm kind of shooting against the light, so I thought, I'm going to try it and see what happens. I'm going to try just do a. I'm going to do a crop, maybe a 16 by 10 crop here. Maybe I'll center it. And this is a good way of showing off the angle feature here. I'm going to click here and then click over here. And that's about right. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use the landscape profile. And let's go ahead and find a good. That really didn't work. Let's try a better. Looking for a good neutral. Let's just try the bridge. All right, we'll try that. That's really dark. I'm going to expose this a little bit. Add a little contrast. Add a little bit of cool this off a little bit, adding some cooler temp. And I obviously did not get much of a sky here. And again, it will not do reflections of the sky and the water, but that's okay. I can try to get a little bit of a prettier sky to dehaze it. Get a little bit of a, I can darken the sky a bit. That's a bit much for me. It's a little too surrealistic for me. And all right, I'm going to go ahead and use the tone curve up with the highlights and down with the shadows just a little bit. This was taken about 10 in the morning. See, this is not actually golden hour. This is actually, it looks that way. I'm a little surprised it looks that way. And by the way, with the tone curve feature, you do have a couple of presets and you can create your own. I personally don't like the medium contrast and strong contrast because the medium contrast is a bit contrasty for me anyway, so for what it's worth. I do want to go over HSL and color. I don't use this a lot. And one reason why is that I shoot a lot of Illinois baseball, and they are orange and blue. And not only are they orange and blue, but they are one RGB color of blue and one RGB color of orange. And there's a whole web page that talks about, please stay within this one, range of orange and blue if you are representing the University of Illinois. So if I mess around too much with the reds and the oranges, or the blues and the aquas, people are going to think what team was what team was this? But that being said, you can choose to edit the colors of a image. And for example, if I wanted to edit the reds, I can either change the actual color to more of an orange, or I guess a more darker red. If I had, so I can, just by this top one, I can make every red in this image more of an orange, or go the other way, I guess, to be more purple. And that would be the hue. Saturation, self-explanatory. Every red becomes more saturated, or the other way around, becomes less saturated. And that goes for every red, orange, yellow, green, aqua, blue, purple, or magenta. And luminance is I can make every red lighter or darker. And that goes for every color. So if I found, let's just say there's a lot of, let's find orange. I can lighten up every orange in here. So it's actually they're not looking too bad. I'll keep that. It will, make a significant difference if your image will call for that. And if you want, you can click on this little dot, this little button right here. And if you have a, if you click this button, and then it will, and then you can take it over into there we go, couldn't do it. And then, hold on one second. Okay. You can see when I click the button, it would, and then touch it on, I'm gonna try a different color. Let's try this greeny here. It'll change that color. Oh, I forgot that changed it. Okay, now it's changing the yellow and the orange. So if you're not sure of the color, but you know what you want to change, try that. It just, click on it, and then it'll do that. You can see that the icon has changed into a dot with two arrows, I guess, and that will go for saturation and hue as well. Let me see. So there's another one of Nashville, and this is an awkward photo, only because it's an awkward one. I wanted to crop or to level out, and let's try this. And it's an easy one, I think, in my opinion, to I might use like yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the 16 by 10. And I'm going to point out one more thing at the histogram. You'll see this red at the top of the upper left-hand corner here. If you click on that, you're going to find somewhere, I'm not sure if I can see it. It basically tells you that you have shadows that are clipped, which means that it's basically useless data, and without you editing the data so that it's in this case lightened up. I honestly can't see it with that. Let's go ahead. Oh, well, it must not be too much. But if I edit it so that you'll okay, it's not there anymore. Now that I've increased the exposure, I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to increase the shadows, the whites. Usually take blacks down a bit. There it is. I see it now. You see where this down by the pier? It's blue. That's basically, I'm going to check on this. And this basically is totally black, and basically the image does not know how to interpret it. So it's just gonna be black. And it's just basically a warning. You can do something with it. You can increase your shadows, or even better, you can do a local adjustment to it. If it doesn't bother you, in this case, it's barely noticeable. So I'm not even gonna worry about it. Try to get some of the reflection here. I'm going to do a little sharpening here. Okay. Do y'all see that green line down the Batman building here? Along the edges here? That is chromatic aberration. I'm almost sure of it. I'm going to see if it goes away. Yep. Okay. And I think that more happens with like lighter lens, with this what was I was shooting at 17 millimeter. So my last one, I don't know if you probably didn't see this, but this is the background on my computer. I've had it on here for about a year. It's our cat, and our cats. We've had a cat for since my kids were probably 14 years, and she passed away last year. And I really liked that photograph. I really did. And I gathered last year, I think I'm gonna find that original photograph, and this is it. I was shocked to find out this was the original photograph that I got this out, because I've had this photograph printed, on pretty decent, material. I'd forgotten how badly exposed this photograph was until I came out on it. So I'm going to try to recreate, what this, from the original photo. This is the original photo, and to prove it, I'll click on reset. So that basically what reset does is that it brings it back. It goes back to the original file and brings it back to the original set. So here goes, okay? Wish me luck. Wish me luck. So I'm guessing that was, I think it's probably 4x6, I think. So maybe not. No, I think it might have been 16x10. Yeah, that sounds right. And I know with the original photograph, it had all those crumply sheets in there, and I tried to get the crumply sheets out of the picture. So let's try that for now. I think I left it Adobe color. Okay, good. I was shooting in RAW at the time. I'm not sure if I would have been. Let's see what auto does for now. Okay, not much better. This is like Stump the Tom. Okay, so far so good. Take down the highlights, take up the whites. Actually, it's not that hard. I'm not gonna add any texture or clarity. I might add some contrast. Yeah, okay, yeah, it wasn't that hard. I will say that I did have this on my desktop, and one thing that was bothering me for years was this piece of dirt here, and so this will give me an opportunity to show you the spot removal tool. I will tell you right now that if you're going to do some serious spot removals, and you know Photoshop, use Photoshop. It's a lot easier, and it does it. It's a lot smarter to do it. But if it's a one and done thing like this, go ahead and do it. Here, you have two options. One is clone, and the other is heal. Heal is a bit more intelligent than clone. Clone basically takes one spot and then replaces it wherever you're doing it. You want to replace. Heal tries to be a little more intelligent about what it is you're doing. So I'm going to try heal, and then if that doesn't work, I'm increasing the size of the brush with my scroll wheel, or you can do it with up here. The scroll wheel is so much easier. And you want to keep it within the inner circle. And actually did a pretty good job. I'm trying to get the white hair to even up. Okay, that's good enough because people didn't even notice it except for me. I was the only one that noticed it, and it was driving me crazy. So yeah, I mean, even a dark picture, and I can, if you press the backslash key, it does. So yeah, it does a fairly decent job in just a couple minutes. I can sharpen it a bit or mask it out, but I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do this. This was taken. I'm really zooming in here. But it didn't take a whole lot of effort. I thought it might. A couple things I want to end with. Every picture that you are looking at, you are I'm going go back to the grid view here. If you right click on a picture and you want to edit it, but you want to edit it in a totally different direction. Like say, for example, I love this photograph, and I love how I did what I did with it, but I want to I want to crop it in a different way for a different purpose. I can right click on it, create a virtual copy, and you can see down here in the film strip that there are two copies. It's not two files, it's not two photographs, it's two representations of the same photograph. So I can do, you know, whatever I want with this photograph. I can go into the develop module and I can, you know, I can do all kinds of wacky stuff. I can just, you know, change her colors to, you know, whatever, you know, and just, whoa, why do we need to do that? And I can just make it, and then this file stays, you know, or this virtual copy stays, you know, the way it is. This file here, you know, does not get changed. I can delete this one. I can remove it from the collection. And then no one would, you know, no better. And because Lightroom is a non-destructive editor, that one file still doesn't know better. It's still the same. It's still the same photograph that came out of the camera. I don't know how many years ago, but we could find out because we could go into the. It was February 23rd, 2019. So, and I do this a lot, you know, because I blog about the Illinois baseball team. I may want a photograph. I may want a good photograph of this picture, but I might also want to post this picture on Twitter, which has, you know, I might just want a, hey, let's do virtual copy and virtual copy created, and then I'll just do a quick 16 by 9. I just want his face because I'm featuring him in an article. I'm writing him about him, and you know, boom. Although, yeah, that'll work. And I can export that out, or that kind of thing, or you know, something different. The right click menu here actually has a lot of things that people you know, might forget. There are you can export from the right click menu. You can of course remove a photo from the collection. This is actually a collection, and we're gonna go over collections in 2 weeks. And this you can also do setting ratings and color labels and flags, that which we'll also you'll go over in a couple of weeks. And it will also tell you where exactly is this picture on my computer, which is probably the biggest question I get about Lightroom. If, like, where is my photograph? Because I never see where my files are. Go to Show and Explorer, and it will come up, and it's right here on. It's in my 2021 September 10th, 2021 folder. So yeah, it basically does a search for that folder. And I think that's it, Steve. I'm open for questions. I'm open for any corrections. I know there are people out there that use Lightroom how do you use it?
Yeah, I did have a question on the virtual copies.
Uh-huh.
Now, let's say you have like 4 virtual copies. If you want to add a keyword, can you add a keyword specific to that virtual copy, or is that keyword across all the copies?
Let's try it. Because I'm pretty sure, okay, this is already had a keyword. It's my cat's name. My son, as you know, is a weather freak. He loves auroras. So, and yes, it does carry over keywords.
Okay.
Yeah, this
well, for
particular
example,
photo, this is a 7.
If you add a keyword to that particular virtual copy, was it show up on the other one?
Right. All right. I doubt it. I think it just carries over and that's it. Yeah, no.
Oh, okay. I'll have to try it again.
I love virtual copies. Virtual copies are so awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
I've done it with this particular photo 7 times. It's like, I want to do this with this photograph or whatever. And sometimes I just want to try something different than what I originally tried, and it just works out so much better. And then, or like I say, I want to, with Facebook and Twitter, you need to have a certain aspect ratio for their banner or for their cover page, and you can't do a 4:6 yet. It has to be a 820 by 315 aspect ratio. So yeah, I'll just do that. And so you can do stuff like that. I've done where, okay, let's create a virtual copy, and we'll do go into crop, and then I think I actually have a 820 by 315, I think, and that's the aspect ratio of a Facebook cover, I think. So I don't have to type it in there. You got, that's my Facebook cover. But yeah.
So Tom, I had a question too.
Sure.
Yeah. You had mentioned back about profiles. You might have explained it. I must have missed it, but you explained the ones you could choose from. But what is a profile? I mean, how does it change the image, or?
It does change it does change the way the image is displayed, and it's basically, if I'm not mistaken, it's I want to say a standard that I think Adobe came up with, certainly for Adobe Color and all of these here, and I believe that other institutions have come up with their own ones that work for Lightroom. If you click on these, and it does you can, if you highlight over each one, you can see how it affects them. Honestly, except for the default ones, like the top ones, and then also these two. These are ones that come, I think, on most, like at least Canon cameras I'm used to, the neutral, the faithful, standard, monochrome, of course. And then you get into like artistic, and honestly, this is my personal opinion, it's a little too much for me, I guess, because I take pictures for them to look good, not to take away the quality of them. But Lomo is a real thing with some people, and that's great. I appreciate that. That's why my photos are very photorealistic and not, so, but I'd love to hear.
Is it different from presets?
Yes, and I'm going to go over presets, I think, in week 2, I think. Yeah. These are just, and from the conventional wisdom is that you should start with presets. I'm sorry, profiles. It should be the first thing you should do, because that gives you not only technically it should be the first thing you do, but really put you in the mindset of what do I want my photograph? What's the intention of my photograph? So it puts you in that mindset. But also, I think it is helpful because if I do landscape, and just as an example, I'm gonna hit auto. That's gonna look different. The auto is gonna process it differently than if I just did that and I did auto. You can see that not just because of it's going to say, well, you chose landscape, so we're going to do, AI is going to look at it a whole different way than if you did a standard or Adobe Color or anything like that. And I have a resource that I may send out in my follow-up maybe tomorrow that talks all about Lightroom profiles and that kind of thing.
I think the best way to think of it is that the profiles are just different ways of interpreting the colors within your photo, where a preset is more for an interpretation of the exact editing process, highlights, shadows, and so on. Basically, so you can recreate that instantly without having to slide all the sliders and try to remember. And the profile is basically the same thing as a preset, except for the colors.
Presets are basically like a macro of instead of you going through and doing everything, it just does it for you. And I have a few, and it does I'm honestly not a huge preset fan. I've never, unless they're the ones I've created, because I've gotten a few presets from a few websites and like I really don't like the way this looks. I mean, this one here, at least for my taste. I better undo this one. Yeah, there we go. But again, that's my personal opinion. But next week, I'm sorry, 2 weeks, the real meat of Lightroom comes into play, and that will be the organizational feature. And that's where Lightroom just, for me, really turned it around for me as a photographer, because I just didn't know where I was at until I got Lightroom. And now, you want to know, or if I want to know, okay, if we want pictures from the Ohio State game in 2015, I can get it to you in 2 minutes. Just by typing in clicking and typing in, I'll get it to you. It's just that easy. Or if I want to know how many pictures I took with my Canon 70 Mark II, in a certain month or a certain week, I can do that. It's that, that detailed. And it helps me to find out where my best pictures are and where, without having to move my files around and that kind of thing. So.
Well, yeah, thanks, Tom. I learned there's quite a few tips there that I didn't know about, the virtual copy and the profiles and leveling out your horizon with the little icon thingy. That I didn't know you could do all that. So it's all been real good. Yeah, you get, I've used Lightroom for a while, but then I figure out the basics and then you kind of just stay there.
Yeah. I think it's almost might be helpful for us to see everyone else's workflow, because I'm sure I pick up something from you guys, just because I get stuck in my own workflow, and Yeah, I couldn't live without virtual copies. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
All
right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tom, for your presentation, and we're looking forward to the follow-up in 2 weeks.
You got it.
This program was recorded, and as soon as I get it processed, I'll try to get it on our YouTube channel for the club.
Right.
Right. Sounds good.
All right.
Right.
Well,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone, and look forward to the one in 2 weeks.
See you later. Good evening.
See ya.
Good night.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Good night.